Federal Inland Revenue Service said to recover tax to the tune of 1.8 trillion naira from MultiChoice. Federal Executive Council approves medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper for 2022 to 2024, as it also approves more than 113 billion naira for more infrastructure development. Nigeria tops African countries in Global Normalcy Index as reports. And oil prices remain stable this Thursday after 2 days of losses this week. These and more coming your way on Business Express on the network service of the NTA, and we are reaching you from Abuja, the nation's capital. I am Leah Katun Babatunde. We begin with news that the Federal Inland Revenue Service, FIRS, has appointed some commercial banks as agents to recover the sum of 1.8 trillion naira from accounts of Messrs MultiChoice Nigeria Limited and MultiChoice Africa. This was contained in a statement signed by the Executive Chairman, Mohammed Nami. The statement confirmed that the decision to appoint the banks as agents and to freeze the accounts was as a result of the group's continued refusal to grant the FIRS access to its service for audit. FIRS notes that the group's performance does not reflect in its tax obligations and compliance levels in Nigeria, despite the country's contribution of 34% to the total revenue for the MultiChoice Group. The Federal Executive Council has approved the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper for 2022 to 2024. The document, a requirement of Fiscal Responsibility Act, projects 13.98 trillion naira's budget size for the 2022 fiscal year. Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning Zainab Ahmed announced this while briefing newsmen after the council's meeting presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari.
Information is that the Nigerian economy recovered from a negative growth of minus 1.8% in 2020 to 2.5% in 2021 and then to 4.2% in 2022. Also, the inflation has moderated from a 19 months high. It's now moderated 2 months now that is coming down to 17.93%. And our foreign reserves stand at 34.2 billion at the end of May, which is a 640 million decline from the previous. What is interesting is that the non-oil GDP continues to grow at 169.69 trillion compared to oil GDP of 14.68 trillion. We have also presented to the federal government the projected revenues for the 2022 to 2024. Specifically for 2022, the revenue that we expect is 6.54 trillion and 2.62 trillion to accrue to the Federation account and VAT pool respectively. And then that there will be a net oil and gas revenue available for the Federation account FAC for distribution. It will be 6.51 trillion in 2022. This revenue is projected to increase in 2023 to 9.15 trillion. The total expenditure we have projected and approved by Council is an aggregate expenditure of 13.98 trillion naira. This includes 1.1 trillion naira of government-owned enterprises expenditure, as well as grants and donor-funded projects in the sum of 62.24 billion.
Similarly, 113 billion naira has been approved by the Federal Executive Council towards the provision of needed infrastructure projects in parts of the country for enhanced socio-economic development. These follow the consideration of several memoranda and reports presented by ministries, departments, and agencies.
99.923 billion naira is now the total revised contract sum, and Council approved. Major highlights of the augmentation was to revise the prices, which were based on 2002 prices when it was awarded. The component of the project itself is 3 main large bridges over the Afa Creek, the Opobo Channel, and the Nanabie Creek. And then there are 10 mini bridges and about 24 kilometers of road network. And this is in Rivers State.
The council approved for the purchase of Kanti Towers, which is located at 35 Adetukumba Demola Street, Victoria Island, Lagos, for the new headquarters of Nigeria Maritime Administration and Safety Agency, which is NIMASA, in the sum of 17,471,005,130 naira 54 kobo, inclusive of 7.5%.
In other business news, latest figures from the Central Bank of Nigeria show that currency in circulation fell by 65.74 billion naira to 2.741 trillion naira at the end of June from 2.81 trillion naira in March. The CBN defined the currency in circulation as currency outside the vaults of the bank, that is, all legal tender currency in the hands of the general public and in the vaults of the deposit money banks. According to the CBN, for every withdrawal made by a deposit money bank at one of CBN's branches, an increase in currency in circulation is recorded, and for every deposit made by a deposit money bank at one of CBN's branches, a decrease in currency in circulation is recorded. And with that, let's see the exchange rate this morning. The Nigerian Export Promotion Council, NEPC, is deepening partnership with the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC, to drive government's agenda of maximizing the nation's energy resources. This meeting was an avenue to identify common areas of interest in diversifying the Nigerian economy away from oil and create job opportunities to cater to the needs of the unemployed.
The Ministry of Petroleum and its respective MDAs, especially NNPC, were identified and tasked with the responsibility of 1, developing sectoral policies to accelerate growth in production within key sectors such as petrochemicals, methanol, nitrogenous fertilizer, and ammonia. 2, to facilitate new investors for the aforementioned products.
The gas-based industries create opportunities from petchem, fertilizer, ammonia, methanol, all of it, count them, polyethylene plants, and so on and so forth, that are all derivatives of gas, that which will essentially first create employment and prosperity in our country. And we also know that the net effect is that there will be a surplus, and that surplus goes into export.
Industry is a $150 billion annual market, and Nigeria is yet to take a firm position in that market. The zero-based plan is conceived to, among other things, turn around the sector for profitability. Now, NJ Martins Ayuk is a Cameroonian attorney, entrepreneur, and author. Ayuk is also the founder and chief executive officer of the Centurion Law Group, a pan-African corporate law. He is the executive chairman of the African Energy Chamber, a man of many caps. And I would like to say welcome to Business Express.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Great. What will be your thoughts on the recently passed petroleum industry bill by the National Assembly?
I think it's a really, really good bill and a good progress for Nigeria. Our industry has waited for about 13 years to have this bill. It's better it's done now. And I think now comes at a critical time when we're dealing with so much around the world with energy transition and how to really set up Nigeria to move and to fast track itself into its energy development. So there could not have been a better incentive to really drive the oil and gas industry forward and also expand into diversification. So thinking about the totality of the circumstances, it is a good bill and it's a good timing, and we hope that they fast track its implementation real quick.
Okay, so what do you see as the benefits of this transition? Because there's a whole lot around of discussion around it. Is it time for Africa? Should Africa move at its pace? So basically, what do you make of the transition for Africa?
Well, we have to take things in context. Africa has emitted carbon emissions 13 times less than Europe, 17 times less than China, and 21 times less than the United States. You cannot get somebody who has been the victim of these carbon emissions to be the one paying the price, the penalty, and reparations for this. We still need time. But let's look at the bigger context. 850 million people across the continent do not have any access to clean cooking or any kind of electricity. That is a big issue. We need to make energy poverty the most important issue right now than ensuring that some girl or somebody in Norway or Scandinavia is happy. But we still have to look at developments. We still have to drive up petrochemicals, urea, ammonia, NPK, fertilizer plants, agricultural bases, so that people in Africa can feed themselves and not try to cross the Mediterranean to look for greener pastures in Europe. So those critical issues where people want to just get a meal every day are more important than people trying to say, let us get less carbon emissions. If we continue producing hydrocarbons and by the way, we need to use it well. We need to really use it well. And I think that's what the PIB does. If we do that, then we have a chance. We have a fighting chance to still develop, protect the environment, and still keep carbon emissions less than 1.5 degrees, which we will not be hurting the environment as much as possible. And gas is really going to change how we look at the future, especially here in Nigeria and across Africa.
Okay, now considering just the sheer amount of the gas reserves Nigeria has, how critical is it for the oil and gas sector in Nigeria to get it right, and of course the African continent?
Well, I've always said Nigeria is more of a gas country than an oil country. I mean, you're celebrating the decade of gas right now. They had a big honor yesterday for the Secretary General of OPEC, Mohammed Sanusi Bakindo. Great Nigerian doing amazing things. But when it comes to gas, you have to look at, you could do power plants. You cannot run industry with generators. So you need gas for your development and you need gas for your diversification. Now, the onus on us is to see how do we attract that needed investment into the Nigerian market, into around Africa. Because if you capture some of the gas that we're flaring in Nigeria, if you capture some of the gas that is being stranded, associated gas, you'll do well. The most profitable Nigerian petroleum scheme has been the Nigerian LNG. It's always reported profits back to back. So if it's working well, we should increase it. I would even suggest Nigeria launch another 4 LNG trains so that you can compete with Qatar and Russia. The potential to do that is there. More than 200 TCF of gas around Nigeria, so you just cannot ignore that. But I think sometimes we have an addiction to oil because we think it's too cheap, but we need to fast track gas development because it's going to be a transition fuel into energy transition, which is really critical, and let's pay attention to that.
Okay, you mentioned OPEC. What significance is this partnership? 50 years, we just celebrated that.
Well, 50 years of OPEC doing one thing, creating stability in the market. Nobody wants volatility. When you have a volatile market, it's bad for Nigeria, it's bad for consumers, it's bad for producers. But 50 years, you have to look at it as an African. You have to look at the role Africans have played. You have to look at the role Nigeria has played. You have to look at, I've negotiated countries going into OPEC. Nigeria has always played a massive role in bringing other Africans in. But you also have to look at what saved the oil and gas industry was a declaration of cooperation of OPEC. And who led that? Mohammed Sanusi Bakindo. It was a Nigerian coming out of Yola, a little small town in Nigeria, that could bring the Russians, the Saudis, and everybody together, and they got a deal done. So sometimes there is, you know, they say beautiful things come from small places. It really happens. But I think we need to start thinking, not the past is reference, not residence. Where do we go from here between Nigeria's relationship and OPEC? Do we get more Nigerians into research? Do we look at preparing ourselves for the future, that development and what needs to be done? And that is really what is going to really shape how OPEC works in Nigeria, how we look at even the African Petroleum Producers Association, which you have a very humble man there. He's another Nigerian, Dr. Omar Farouk. You have to look at how we support them, because that great reservoir of knowledge that exists within this country, it can be infectious. You need to take that around Africa. As the head of the African Energy Chamber, it's always one of the key things I say, use Nigerian skills, which are world-class, top-notch. They've made some mistakes, but sometimes you have to learn from those who've made mistakes than those who try to tell you that they know too much, because those who say they know too much, they really don't know. So use Nigerian skills and experience and really develop Africa. Mozambique is going to have a lot of gas. They could learn from Nigeria. Equatorial Guinea, Gabon, Angola, so much skills, so much talent in Nigeria, but also Nigerians have to start learning French and Spanish and Portuguese and not get too comfortable in Nigeria, because there is a drive, there's something that makes you uniquely Nigerian in the oil and gas sector. They don't say no. They get up at 7 o'clock, it's not a big issue, and they don't care about wearing good suits. They just want to work.
Just want to hustle.
They want to make so much money. And if you want to be rich, you want to be Nigerian.
Okay, great. And now, so you just took part, of course, at the 20th edition of the Oil and Gas Conference and, of course, exhibition. What were your major takeaways from that?
The big takeaway you look at there is that we're back. The oil and gas industry is back. There's been COVID, we couldn't meet, we couldn't talk to each other. Everybody had been zoomed out. The first thing everybody's relieved is that it's been back. But more importantly, it was the passage of the PIB that was a game changer. It gave the industry a shot in the arm. I've never seen so much enthusiasm in a room in Nigeria with oil and gas producers like I've seen at NOG. There is some excitement, because why? There's going to be drilling in deep water. So you're going to see more discoveries and more gas discoveries which could be developed. There's going to be drilling in shallow water, because government took the proper step to incentivize it. And you got to give credit to your minister. I mean, this guy put it together. Nobody thought he could do it. And I heard he has a birthday yesterday, so he probably ran away to go enjoy his birthday and rest. But that is something that you find. And I think sometimes we look at how much money goes here or goes here, but I think what is really important is that people are enthusiastic. People are now thinking, we can do this. And I think Nigeria needs that more than ever. Coming out of COVID, coming out of a market that a lot of people lost revenue with the difficult market turns. And you're starting to see people saying, we're going to do it. But also foreign investors are looking at Nigeria again and are saying, we can invest in some of the new fields that are coming up. We can invest in gas. They've seen Nigeria's great market as Africa's largest nation, 200 million people. How can you not think this is where you need to put your money? You're going to make profit in among other things, but you have a skilled population that can really drive Africa forward. And so there is it, and that's why I'm here, because I know there's a lot of money to be made in Nigeria.
You're here for the skills and the money.
Skills, the money, and the food.
Yo.
Okay.
Did you have a jollof rice?
I had a jollof rice. I'm going to Ghana. I need to compare which tastes
Oh.
better.
This is going to be the best.
But I also had something different. I had pepper soup and my.
Oh, very fantastic.
So I'm happy being in Nigeria.
Okay, I must sincerely thank you, Ayik, for spending
Thank
some
you.
time with us.
Thank you so much.
Yes, and
Thank
so
you.
we move straight to surviving COVID-19 with Joshua Babatunde.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
I benefited from CCF COVID-19 loan. I heard about it from the internet, and then I tried to put in my name, and it was successful. And I was sent an information that I should upload my account details, and I put in. After 2 weeks, I received 350,000 naira, and I used the 350,000 naira to bring up this. That is poultry. The COVID-19 really affected me during that 7 to 8, 9 months. A lot of things went down, but I thank God for CCF loan for their assistance. I received the loan 2021 January, first week to be precise. The loan is for household. Wow, the loan have really assisted us so much, even in the business, also in the household, because at least we are now bounced back to life. Unlike when we were in the pandemic, everything was down. The president of the federation have really assisted us, because ever since I'm 40 years this year, I've never seen a president that gave masses of money like this to people to assist their business. And thank God for Governor Emefiele. They have really assisted us so much, because if the president gave him the go-ahead, what if he did not disburse the money to us? At least we achieve it. And here I am with my business. I thank God. Fellow Nigerians out there, if you are being collected such, or you are among us that receive such amount, please make use of it perfectly, because opportunity comes but once.
Surviving COVID-19 series is brought to you in partnership with the Central Bank of Nigeria.
Now, the Weights and Measures Department of the Ministry of Industry, Trade and Investment is of the view that if granted the status of an agency, the department can rake in more revenue for the federal government, in addition to ensuring production of quality products and accurate measurement. To this end, the department is implementing a 5-year strategic action plan.
A single state like Ogun generates up to about 90 to 100 million.
The machinery is placed on ground to see how the department will be moved and developed within this framework of the strategic action plan.
Now, the winning streak continues in the Nigerian exchange with 0.22% gain as at yesterday, and that's the opening figure this morning. And elsewhere, virus wars and technology crackdown hammer stocks while bonds rally in the global markets are evident this morning, and Boss Day Abel has a summary of that.
U.S. Labor Department latest jobless claims figures will be a focal point for investors this Thursday. Futures contracts tied to the major U.S. stock indices fell in early morning trading Thursday after both the S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite closed at records. Dow futures dropped 262 points. Contracts tied to the S&P 500 and Nasdaq 100 were both in negative territory. European stocks were lower Thursday morning amid a more cautious turn in global sentiment. DAX was unchanged, FTSE was 0.73% and CAC 40 was 0.77%. The lower open for Europe reflect cautious sentiment in Asia Pacific as shares are mostly on the decline on Thursday, as Chinese stocks in Hong Kong came under pressure after regulatory fears resurfaced. Hong Kong Hang Seng Index led losses among the region's major markets as it slipped 2.79%. Nikkei closed 0.88% lower at 28,118.03. And the Shanghai Composite also fell 0.79% to 3,525.5. Some African stocks opened lower, with the South Africa's JSE Africa Top 40 and Namibia Overall Index depreciating, while others are still maintaining previous figures as at the time of this report. Boss Day Able, Business Express.
And of course, with that, we come to the end of this edition of the program. Remember to keep in touch with us by sending in your comments, observations, and suggestions. Also be informed that all previous episodes are available on YouTube on the NTA's channel. Business Express returns tomorrow at 3 p.m. My name is Leah Katung. Bye-bye today.